Oh, incredible. Absolutely incredible. Because we got to a point in our lives, and I've been listening to a lot of people about midlife crisis and stuff like that. And it's not a midlife crisis. I think you get to a point in your life and you think, hang on, what am I doing? Then we wanted to have a family. And so I had to give up my passion of being a chef and go and get a job. And at 24, 5, however old I was, I hadn't been to university. I hadn't, hardly any qualifications, a couple of O levels. And what can I do? And so I went into sales. Yeah, because I listened to loads of podcasts where, they're billionaires and millionaires. And you're sort of like thinking, I could walk into any of their houses and I'm more content than they are because I have enough.
Welcome, I'm Tracy Irwin and I'm passionate about financial independence and wanted to share stories of inspiring entrepreneurs to prove it's possible for anyone to strive towards financial freedom. Today, I'm talking to Ashley Leeds. He's a LinkedIn trainer, a coach, an author, and an international speaker. Now, I've been friends with Ashley for a while now, and we speak every week. So I knew he would be brilliant on this because he's very open and honest with me about how he feels about financial independence. And I'm really looking forward to speaking to him about sharing his story with you. Hi, Ashley.
Hello, Tracy. Yeah, friends. This is funny, isn't it? Like, and you're doing the driving today, not me. So,
I know.
Yeah, looking forward to this.
Change. So, just for people who don't know you, that's on the podcast, please could you introduce yourself and just give them a bit about what you do, please?
Yeah, sure. So my name's Ashley Leeds. I'm the 15-minute guy, and I help people get a voice on LinkedIn. So I give people the wherewithal, but more importantly, Tracy, I give people the confidence to stand out on LinkedIn, because when you come onto LinkedIn, it's a little bit scary. So I do a little bit more than just talk about the algorithm and stuff like that. So it's all about the confidence and the branding and just getting a voice.
I think it is about the voice, isn't it? Being authentic and stuff. So just to talk about financial independence, like, what does financial independence actually mean to you, the words itself?
I think for me, it was getting rid of the mortgage. So that, because we live in the UK, we're conditioned that we've got to buy a house, and that was the first thing we did when we got married. And we're proper traditional, myself and my wife. We met, we'd had a courtship, then we got married, then we bought a house, and then we had children. And so everything that we've done has been traditional. I'm an awful lot older than I look, and I bought a house. Our very first house was purchased in 1989, just before the whole housing market in the UK dropped off a cliff. And those were the days when we had interest rates of about 13 or 14%, went up to 17% in one day when John Major was the Prime Minister. And so I've always had this huge debt around my neck. And just thinking about it as I'm chatting now, one of my elderly relations as a kid would say to me, never a lender or borrower be. Yeah. And that is, it's a classic old line. But I've really hated borrowing money. I've always purchased my cars outright. I've never got them on finance, except for the very first one because we had no money, and the mortgage. So, yeah, that to me is financial independence, which is probably where I'm going wrong.
No, but I think that's really interesting because I know lots of people who do strive to pay off their mortgage because it gives them some kind of security. Like, how did that feel to you? The day you paid your mortgage off, how did it feel?
Oh, incredible. Absolutely incredible. Because we got to a point in our lives, and I've been listening to a lot of people about midlife crisis and stuff like that. And it's not a midlife crisis. I think you get to a point in your life and you think, hang on, what am I doing? And I was working, I like I said, we're traditional, right? So when we decided to have a family, yeah, my wife wanted to be a stay-at-home mum, and I wanted her to be a stay-at-home mum because we'd both been raised by mothers who were stay-at-home mums because that was the generation that it was. And so therefore I did everything I could to make sure that she didn't have to work and she could raise our children. Now, here's the thing. My daughters are 29 and 32 now. They are absolutely lovely. They've moved away. They've grown up. They've married. One of them's had a child. But they've come back, Tracy. They live literally in the same street. Now, that is all down to the relationship that we had with our children when they were younger and Debs gave up her working career to be a mum. I also gave up my passion because Debs and I were both chefs.
Yes.
And when we were cooking, we had a job where we were both the head chef at this. We were the whole catering team at this hotel. And so we shared the responsibilities, and the owners would look after the kitchen on a Sunday evening and a Monday. So we'd get back into work on a Tuesday and we'd work all week and then finish at Sunday. We'd do the Sunday lunch and then we'd be done. We were earning back then 15 grand a year. That was our joint salary.
Wow.
Okay. We had a £50,000 mortgage, which seems nothing today. But if you think of that at 14%, we barely had two halfpennies to rub together. And when the car died, we had no savings, and our employer was friendly with the garage guy next door, and whatever they did, we didn't pay for the repairs of the car.
Oh, that's really kind of them.
Yeah, absolutely. But we did an amazing thing for them. We run their kitchen, and
Yes,
we
that's
couldn't
true.
get to work. So work it out.
Did you?
So then we wanted to have a family, and so I had to give up my passion of being a chef and go and get a job. And at 24, 5, however old I was, I hadn't been to university. I hadn't, hardly any qualifications, a couple of O levels. And what can I do? And so I went into sales, which is something I never wanted to do. I didn't want to be a salesman. My dad was a salesman. He used to come home from work, in a stroppy mood because he didn't get that sale and the sales manager's on his back. And I didn't want to be that guy. But it was a great way for a young man to earn enough money to keep his wife at home to look after the children. So I became the hunter.
How did you manage that mindset shift? Because obviously, as a chef, you were following a passion, whereas suddenly to be financially independent for your family, you're suddenly doing, as you just went, I got a job. So you felt like chefing wasn't a job, it was your passion. Whereas suddenly you're in something. How did you cope with that mindset shift? And what was it that kind of drove you to be successful in that part of your career?
I always wanted to be a dad.
Okay.
Okay, I always wanted to be a dad. When I was young, my mother left the family home, so I was left with my father and my younger brother, and then he remarried, and the lady he remarried had 3 kids of her own, and when they first became part of our blended family, the 2 little boys were 1 and 2. Okay. So I was changing nappies at 10, 11 years old. But I loved it. I loved being a big brother. So I've always wanted to be a father. So it wasn't a case of going to be a sales guy. I would have dug roads or whatever else because I wanted to be a dad.
Yeah.
And we'd got it. We were ready to have a family. And so yeah, I don't think it was a mindset shift. You know me, Tracy. I'll just get on and do it, won't I?
Yeah, I think that's the same. So in 2008, by the way, my business was I gave up total employment in 2006, even though the business started in 2002. And then 2008 hit and the recession. And I wasn't losing clients, but I wasn't getting any new ones. And I went and worked in my friend's tanning salon, because I knew I had a roof to put over mine and my daughter's head. It was just a case of, I'm going to make sure that I get enough to be financially independent. I didn't care what I was doing at that time. And then as soon as the recession kind of drifted a little bit, then I started to grow the business again. And I stopped. I did it for somebody left on maternity. So it was a short period of time anyway. So yeah, and it's the same. It's just kind of doing what's needed. And it's so from a money point of view then, what happened? Where did your shift go from being a salesperson to being a coach?
Oh, that was gradual.
Yeah.
That was totally gradual. But the thing is, right, I've had 30 jobs and I've sold pretty much everything, right? And during that transition, I even had a stint as a postman, right?
Okay.
And I got the sack every day. It was brilliant. And I worked in a Sorry, the old ones are the old ones. I also worked in a warehouse, okay, with some really incredible characters. I'm not going to talk about them today on this podcast. Maybe when we catch up one day, ask me about that, because I got some great stories there as well. I've worked in a bank, and then I moved back to Sidmouth, and we all moved back to Sidmouth. We're still married, by the way, so
Yeah.
it worked. It worked. So we moved back to Sidmouth, and I got myself a job at a software house working for accountants.
Okay.
And that was when I started earning a little bit more. But we've never been minted. And Deb's hasn't really worked. She's had lots of little jobs, but more for pin money and sanity than a career. And she doesn't work now. And so we've got a great relationship, whereas we just do what we want to do. So because you see some people like, oh, we're going to go and do this. No, because I can't finish until whatever, and it's like, oh, this is ridiculous. So
Freedom, isn't it?
yeah, absolutely. So we've cut our cloth accordingly. So we don't have a million holidays every year. We don't drive a flash car and live in a flash house. But when we got to a point, when I turned around to Debs and I said, why are we doing this? We sort of like, we were happiest when we had nothing. When we were working at that hotel and the car died, we absolutely had nothing. Okay, but we were in our elements. And I think that's what I struggle with is, with the way money is and stuff like that. Do I want to be the guy with a Porsche and a private jet and the yacht and all of that stuff? I'm really happy where I am. I'm proper content. I've just we're recording this after lunch. I've just had a little walk down to the beach because I can.
Yeah. So for anyone who's struggling, that they think they don't have enough, like, what advice would you give them to actually sit and work out when you do have enough? What is enough? What's the feeling? Not the amount, what's the feeling that's enough?
That's a great question. Yeah, because I listen to loads of podcasts where they're billionaires and millionaires, and you're sort of like thinking, I could walk into any of their houses and I'm more content than they are because I have enough. And you speak to I don't know where this comes from, but you speak to anyone, they want 3 times more than they've got. So if you speak to a millionaire, they want another 3 million. You speak to a billionaire, they want another 3 billion. Yeah, so and I think it's human nature. We want to chase more. Okay, you finish school, and I'm paraphrasing Mo Gaudat now, but you finish school and get your first job, you want £100, all right, a week, all right, but then you're sort of like, oh, actually, I could do with £150 a week, and then before you know it, like, oh, I need a mortgage, that's £1,000, and we're sort of like, I need the next thing, I need the next thing, I need the next thing, and I think once you've got the big house and the big mortgage, and we had a camper van, and it's sort of like, but it wasn't bringing us any extra joy. And I sat down with my wife and I said, look, if we get rid of the big house, we won't need the big mortgage, and then I won't need the big idiot boss that I'm working for. And that totally changed the playing field, because every time I've gone for another job, so my very first job out of being a chef, I had to earn enough to replace Debbie's and my salary. Yeah. And so every job I had after that, so like, oh, I don't like working here anymore because of this, and this. So I've got to go and get another job that's earning that or more. Yeah. And because the more, we've got the mortgage, and then, the kids are getting a bit bigger. So we needed a bigger house, and then we decided to move to a different area. So we needed, and it was always that. And we were always chasing to get to the next level. And it's sort of like, I can stop right now. I do not need to do any more. Yeah. All right. And so what we did is we downsized and we paid off the mortgage. And it was a revelation.
Yeah.
It really was a revelation.
I think so many people strive to get bigger houses, faster cars, nicer holidays, than actually consolidating everything and just making sure that you are financially secure, because it doesn't matter where you live. It's who you're with that
Yes.
actually makes it the difference, doesn't it? So it's kind of making sure that because contentment comes from within. It's deciding, isn't it? And it's not like chasing the next $1 million or even it's kind of, or chasing the next big property. It's kind of understanding that it is enough. Like Buffett, for instance, he still lives in a house with his wife, doesn't he? It's
The very first house that he
they
bought.
ever bought. Like,
Yeah.
he could buy the entire street, probably three,
The
four
city. He
streets.
could buy the city, yeah. Definitely
But
buy
he
the block or
chooses
two.
not to because he's content with who he is. Now, he does strive for more money, but in a totally different way than big assets. And I think I see business owners sometimes, they're putting cars on finance to make themselves look good to the outside world, and yet inside their businesses are folding. Whereas if they actually didn't care what other people think, then actually that would make them a much more wealthier and happier person. And I think that's about looking at financial independence. I mean, it's all right to be striving towards it, isn't it? It's kind of like I feel like sometimes to me it feels like a bit of a roller coaster. Like you can be asset rich, but sometimes feel a bit cash poor sometimes. And I think that's okay as long as your future is looked after. So it's kind of like finding that. So for me, it's finding the motivation during the tough times to know that I'm on the right track. Like
Yeah,
how
yeah.
do you how do you do that?
So when we first bought our house, right, and it all stems down to the house and the debt
Yeah.
that we've got. So when we first bought our house, like I said, we had a 50 grand mortgage. The house was worth 54,950. Okay. We sold that house, Tracy, 6 years later. 6 years later, I promise you, the spare room that then became my daughter's room, that then became the room for both of the kids,
Yeah.
because we could not move because we had negative equity.
Okay.
We sold that house for 39,000
Wow.
6 years later. Yeah.
Gosh, that
We
is a
had a
goal.
mortgage. We had a mortgage of £50,000 on that house. Yeah. So we're just like, this is ridiculous. And
Yeah.
and we managed to, I was with the Alliance in Leicester at the time, and they had a scheme that was a negative equity scheme. And basically we ended up with I don't know, 120% mortgage.
All right. Okay.
So we moved the mortgage to this new house. And I think we paid 50 grand for this house. And it was incredible. So I put a note in the post office in the village we lived in. Do you like living in the village? Because we love living in the village. And is your house too big? Because our house is too small. And this old lady phoned me up. She phoned me up. She said, "Oh yes, I do." And so we swapped houses. All
Wow.
right, we swapped houses, and I gave her £11,500. And we swapped houses. No estate agents. I
That's a
borrowed the
lovely
van.
story.
I borrowed the van from work. Right, I borrowed the van from work, and we moved each other. So basically, we took some stuff out of our house because it was literally half the size. Our house was half the size of hers. We moved
Wow.
into her house, and it was like incredible. The girls had a room each. We had an upstairs. It was incredible. And this lady was very elderly, and she couldn't cope with the stairs anymore. The back garden was down a load of steps, so she couldn't really use the back garden. She lived her best life out in that little bungalow, overlooking beautiful views, overlooking the churchyard. She had a lovely little garden. She had some money to put a beautiful conservatory on the back. She just had her best life, and it kept her going for a lot longer than it would have done if she'd have been stuck in that, and people weren't buying houses back then because everyone had negative equity.
No,
So
see
so
that.
so we saved her life, but she saved ours,
Yeah,
Tracy.
honestly, that story has made my day because I know how Sheila felt like feeling like she did you a favor, but also doing herself one. Like
Absolutely.
that's like, so because
Well,
my story is very different from mine. I was very, very lucky, by the way. So I bought my council house in 1990. 98, I think it was, after I got my first job. First thing I did, again, bought my because I'd been in a council house for a few years because I was a single parent at 19, and I bought it for £38,000.
Wow.
I sold my house 3 years later for 105.
Wow.
And my story is very different from yours to being on a financial ladder. So it's kind of like that's given me I'm humbled with by that because I bought my first house at a very opportune time,
Yeah.
whereas
Yeah.
you didn't, and that's very different in the lives that we'd led because actually that allowed me to be able to get a property where me and my daughter were comfortable, much more comfortable.
Well, when we bought our house, Thatcher was in power, and you had to buy a house. You just
Yeah.
had to buy a house, and it, it, you know it could there was people were just giving their keys back because they had negative equity, and we just dug our heels in and ate soup and whatever else,
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And both of our parents lived a long way away, so we didn't have any support at all. My kids, they're often down at ours for dinner or lunch or what have you. Son-in-law, he comes in, he just says hi and opens up the fridge, we never had any of that luxury. And if we did go down, they'd have to slip us some money for petrol because we had to drive all the way down to Newquay and
Yeah.
so it was tough. But I think doing all that tough makes, when it's easy, the more enjoyable,
Yes.
and we appreciate things. We absolutely appreciate it. And so moving into that house, we when we lived in that house, right, we wanted to tidy up the kitchen because she'd lived there forever, so it had a really old granny-fied kitchen. So we stripped all the varnish off the units and whitewashed them so they look
Yep.
cool and trendy. This was the day when we had changing rooms in Lawrence Llewellyn and
Oh,
Bowen
yes.
and all that sort of malarkey. And so I made this frame out of wood. All right. So this is very early days of my DIY. Since then, I've done all kinds of things, and I've done roofing and put central heating in, rewired a property and
You'll
all
have to
that.
start somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. So I built this frame, right? So imagine like a squarish it's the size of a unit, but it's just out of wood. And then I
Yep.
put wire mesh behind it, and then this pretty curtain behind that, and then that went over the washing machine. So when you walked into the kitchen, it looked like it was on changing rooms, and it wasn't an appliance. All right. And so I was outside in my garage doing this, and one of my neighbors came around. She goes, "Oh, that's nice. Are you getting a rabbit?" And I didn't have the heart to turn around and say, "No, it's our kitchen units," because I've been watching changing rooms.
Oh, no,
So yeah, mend and make do, Tracy.
So, what advice? Like, I know you've got a brilliant relationship with your family, and especially both of your daughters as well. So, like, what kind of like advice did you give them as they were growing into teenagers about money mindset and like how to know, like, what the do's and don'ts about kind of money? Because, like you said before, you've never paid for a car on finance or anything, whereas when your daughters were growing up, it was the in thing to do was to get everything on tick, as we
They've
used to
both
call
got
it.
cars on finance. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but have they managed to be able to get financial independence for themselves as well?
Depends what you call financial independence. And the thing is, right, when you've got two kids, you would expect them to be identical. But oh my goodness, Tracy, chalk and cheese isn't far enough apart. Okay. So here's a little bit of wisdom that I was told. The family that eats together stays together. Okay.
Okay.
So we've
Yeah.
always, 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 always ate together. Lunch, breakfast, dinner, we've always eaten together. Even if we weren't having the same, I think we've always had the same with the kids. Some families, they sort of like, oh, they give the kids chicken nuggets and chips, and then when they're in bed, we'll have our dinner. We always ate together. And so at meal times, we would talk. So
Yes.
yes, they've always had pocket money, and the pocket money just doesn't come from the fairies. They've got to do their chores around the house.
Yeah.
And then one of the houses we moved to, so it's actually when we moved to Sidmouth, it had all of that dog's dinner on the wall. What was it called? Wood chip
Oh,
wallpaper.
yes.
Oh, every blinking room was wood chip wallpaper. And I turned around to the girls, and because we had, at the time, flat screen TVs were coming in, and we had one of those great big Sear, cathode ray tube things. And we said to them, look, what we'll do is every time you come up and do some work, we'll put some money in a pot and then we'll buy you a telly. And so basically when we moved into it, when the house was all done, because we were renting and doing up this other house. Okay. So when we moved in, we had this whacking great big TV that the girls had bought.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. So
it shows, doesn't it? Like the value of things.
Yes, absolutely. But doing all of that, right, has got my girls doing DIY. And no disrespect to my son-in-laws, but my daughters are better at DIY than the guys. And it's sort of like, why did you marry a guy that doesn't know what a screwdriver is, And so yeah, we've always make do and mend, but I don't do the DIY out of necessity or to save money. It's also a sense of pride. It's also a project. But they're great skills to learn. And so when I move into a house now and something goes wrong, I'll have a go. The loo's not flushing properly. I'll, roll my sleeves up and get in there and I can fix it,
Gerard is exactly the same as that, by the way. I see the pride in when he's done something in our house. I'm more creative, paintbrushes in my hand for paintings than I am on a wall, by the way. I'll have to admit that. But he doesn't do any of the DIY jobs out of necessity. He does them because he wants the pride in his home, and I see it in him all the time. And he's brilliant, like literally. He's so good. But yeah, it's interesting, and I think going back to what you said about the girls and the TV, I watched an Instagram video of a dad who took his 2 kids to the supermarket and told them they had $800 between them to buy whatever they wanted, right? So they put absolutely everything in their basket. We could tell they were ecstatic. And then he turned around and he said, but I don't have $800 because this is how much you spent on the computer. So they bought something that was totally not visual. It was not real to them at all. It wasn't their fault, because it isn't real to them when it's just like points and things on a screen. And he showed them how much they could have had, but instead they'd had that time. And the faces, they were both like early teenager, maybe 10 to 12 maybe. And it was like, just hit home, like how much, because of the technology that we have, our children don't understand the value of money because it's not real.
They don't see the money. My kids had 50p and cash, and we always had cash, so they understand cash. Nowadays, in fact, at a breakfast networking meeting today, I was chatting to an older guy, and he just uses his watch all the time. He's got cards in his pocket, and he doesn't think he's ever used them because he uses his watch. Well, it's not real money, when we saved up for a deposit for our house. So we were working as chefs at a really posh hotel, and we'd get paid on a Friday. We'd go to the wages clerk or whatever, and they'd give us an envelope of cash. We'd go back to our room because we had a shared room.
Not allowed. You weren't married.
We weren't married. We had separate beds, Tracy. Honest. And so we'd sit on the bed, all right, and count out the cash, and we'd work out how much we needed for the week, and the rest we put in an envelope, and we drove down to the town and put it in the Alliance and Leicester Building Society. Wow. And so we lived in Morton Hampstead, so it's a tiny little village or a small town in the middle of Dartmoor. And there's a big town nearby that we used to go to now and again, high days and holidays and what have you. And we were walking through the town, and this is when car showrooms were in the town rather than on big industrial estates. And in this showroom window was a Suzuki Jeep, an SJ410. I don't know if you remember them, but it looks like a Tonka toy. Okay. It was bright yellow. I can still see it right now. It was bright yellow, Tracy. So something in the back of my mind has always been into yellow, yeah.
Yeah.
But on the ticket price for this car, and it was nearly new. I don't think it was brand new, but nearly new, and it looked the biz, all right. And it was 5 grand, and we had 5 grand in our Bills in Society book. So we'd literally go in, give them the cash, they'd put it into the computer. The computer would write on the book, and that's how much money we had, yeah. And we
Yeah.
did that every single week, and we built up 5 grand as a deposit for a house. And I turned around to Debs and I went, "We've got enough money to go and buy that." Because we didn't know about car loans and things like that back then. We weren't business people. We were chefs. We were creatives.
Yeah.
And we looked at each other and go, "Oh, wouldn't it be great?" Because we had I don't know, a crappy old banger or what have you. And it was a big, shiny, chunky, cool car. And we didn't buy it, and we sank all of that money into the house. And then a few years later, the value of the house had gone right down. Would we have had more fun with the Suzuki Jeep? Who knows? And would I be here
knows,
talking to you
but-
today? You know,
Yeah.
and I think it's that tough start with married life that's made us resilient and enabled us to get through the tough times. You know, because being married for 30 plus years, 36, 37 years, ain't an easy gig.
No.
You know, we're going to have our down days and our up days and stuff like that. But because we had that hard start, the tough stuff right at the beginning, I think that's made us so much more resilient. So when something comes along, so like, we've done this, we can do it.
If you could go back in time to the start of when you and Debs got married, like, and give yourself some advice, what would you tell yourself?
It'll be all right. It'll
it
be all right
usually
because I can't change anything. Yeah. What would I do? Go back and say, look, don't buy the house. Let's rent, because in a few years' time, house prices are going to drop, and then that's when we buy. Because by then, you see, if we were renting, or what we know, because as a chef, you can get a job anywhere and get free accommodation.
Yeah, true.
So what we could have done is gone and worked in a couple of different hotels, get a bit more experience, build up a bank of money because we were good at saving. You know, a lot of our colleagues, because this is the thing, that hotel in Morton Hampstead, there was a staff bar. So what happened is everybody used to go into the staff bar and give all the money back, you know? And so we purchased a video cassette recorder, and we would, because we worked split shifts, so we'd work of an evening. So what we would do is we if we had an evening off or something, we'd go to the movies or something, or we'd watch something that we recorded last week or something, and not go to the staff bar because we knew that would cost us an absolute fortune. And all you're doing is giving the money straight back, which is, and
You also
so
had each other though, so it was
we
kind of
did,
like,
we
that's
did, yeah. We used
helpful.
to play backgammon and stuff. But the if I could turn around and say, look, don't buy a house and put all the money there, then yeah. But no, we've had a great life and we've learnt an awful lot from it, and it's made us the people we are. So I think the advice would be, it's going to be all right, Ash.
Yeah,
You'll be fine. You'll be
definitely.
absolutely fine.
So obviously we're all on a financial independence roller coaster. Do you have aspirations for the next 5 years? Is there anything you want to kind of like grow, or are you really are content with everything you have right now?
Well, this is the problem. This is the problem. I've had some coaching for some really cool people, and they say, "Oh, Ash, you're brilliant. You could do this. You could do that. You could do that." And somebody was having a chat with me, and basically, I'm self-sabotaging it because I don't see myself as being the guy with the Porsche and the flash house and all of that malarkey. I could do with a little bit more, Tracy. But
You can do a little bit more.
yeah, no, we get by. We get by. Deb said, "Oh, let's go to the movies." And I'm like, "Oh, just be careful." And
I
and
saw
that's the
this in you
thing.
last year when you went to Canada to speak, by the way. And because of how you live financially secure, but not frivolously, like you went totally out of your comfort zone when you went to Canada. You
I did.
went with the two ladies who do the bookkeeping thing, and they kind of coaxed you out of your comfort zone. And like,
Yeah,
it was so nice to see you creating those experiences for yourself. And I think when we do strive for more, for me personally, it isn't about materialistic things. It's about those experiences. I'd like to
absolutely.
experience more. I don't want more. I don't want anything more. Find that like materialistically, I have everything I need. You know, I think there's a scary statistic that when you've got a roof over your head and a car to drive, you've got so much more than massive population of the world anyway. That we are so lucky anyway. But I want to have more experiences. Like I want to say be able to say yes to more opportunities that give me fulfillment rather than, you know, say yes to opportunities because they're going to give me more money. That's not what I want to say yes to. And I feel
No.
like you're probably the same with that.
Absolutely, absolutely. We've got a big birthday coming up, both of us, and it'd be lovely to take the kids to a really posh hotel or something like that, and do something really nice, you know, a proper holiday.
Nice.
So
And the
yeah,
grandkids too. You got one.
yeah, absolutely. Just the one at the moment. Yeah.
So yeah, that's lovely. So yes, so thank you very much for this conversation. I have learned so much about you today. It's been really, really nice, and some of those stories have really filled my heart. So thank you very much, and I hope to speak to you again soon.
No,
Thank you very
I'm sure you will speak to me again very soon. But yeah, thanks ever so much for having me on, and yeah, keep doing what you're doing because it's brilliant, and we need to have these conversations, Tracy.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
But going back to this old lady, right? She was delightful, okay, and she drove a hard bargain. She really drove a hard bargain, and you know, she wanted 12 grand, and I managed to get it down to 11 and a half grand. She, you know, nobody was going to pull the wool over her eyes. And so anyway, we turned around to her and said, and this is even funnier because what happened was is I bumped into my old boss, so the guy who I borrowed the van off to move us,
Yeah.
right, a couple of years ago, and we're talking nearly 25 years ago when this happened, okay, and he turned around and he retold the story because he was so gobsmacked. So this is the story I'm going to tell you now. So we were going to move us. So you know, we negotiated this 11 and a half grand, and we negotiated when we were going to move and stuff like that. And we put the solicitors in touch, and they got on with everything. And then I turned around to this lady and I said, look, I need to borrow a van from work. When are we going to move? So she got her calendar out, or a diary, all on paper, and she's flicking through. And she was one of those people in the village that did everything. She, you know, she did Meals on Wheels for the old people. She was a church warden. She Mothers
Sounds
Union.
like my
You know,
mum.
yeah, absolutely. So like, right, I can only do weekends because I work, and the van is needed Monday to Friday. Even if I took the day off, I wouldn't be able to get the van. So we can only do weekends. So like, what about that weekend? No. What about that weekend? No. What about that weekend? And I don't know if you've ever seen the show. What is it? The Vicar of Dibley, when they're trying to book a meeting, and the clock goes round, and you can see that they just spent the whole meeting trying to get the next meeting, and it was like that. And she looked at her calendar again. And she said, "Well, what about next weekend?" And I said, "Well, we can't because we wouldn't have exchanged, and so therefore, technically, it's neither of our houses." So she says, "Well, I won't say anything if you won't say anything." So we actually moved house
Wow. That's trust.
before the solicitors had actually done anything, before the mortgage had gone through. And I told my boss this, and he went absolutely ape. And he said, "You shouldn't be doing that." Da, 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 da. And I went, "What's the worst that can happen?" You know? And I guess the worst that could happen is she would have died before she wasn't that ill, she wasn't that old, but you know, what if she dies? Possession is 9/10 of the law. I don't know, you know. But he was absolutely gobsmacked. So I don't tell many people that story, but
That's amazing.
it's
It is
brilliant,
that's a
isn't
massive
it?
trust,
Brilliant,
that, isn't it?
isn't it
Massive
brilliant?
trust.
Yeah.
Because if that's a trust in you more, because like you could have just gone, I've got your house now. Thanks. Let's keep my 11 and a half grand.
Yeah,
I know
absolutely,
you as a person
absolutely.
wouldn't do that, by the way, but there is people out there that would.
Oh, I know, I know. And I was listening to somebody this morning. She was saying that she lost 30 grand with a phone scammer from pretending to be the bank.
my mum's friend. That happened to my mum's friend as well. It's like she just they pretended to be the police. That somebody was trying to get money out of her bank, and they told her that she had to move it before they other people got to it, and she believed them. £26,000
Ouch.
gone. It's so scary, scary. I mean, I was waiting for a parcel off my mum here, and our mail is Carros. And I got a text message off Carros saying that somebody had underpaid postage on a parcel, so I assumed it was the parcel waiting for my mum. And I tried to put my bank details in to pay the extra €2.45, and I just got a swirly thing. And I thought, oh, see what happens. And then €800 went out of my bank. And in
No.
Spain, it's a totally different like story. I had to prove that I didn't do it. Like I spent months, probably nearly a year, trying to fight that to get my €800 back. I've been to the police. I got a number. She kept saying, "Your phone did it." I'm like, my phone might have done it, but because I put in a card details in, I was scammed, and I tried. And Santander would not give me my €800 back. Whereas in England, our money is protected so much better. They'd have given me that back immediately, and I couldn't get it. I could not get it in Spain at all. So,
Wow.
so even the most intelligent, money-driven people in the world can get scammed, right? Things sometimes, but yeah, not.
Just got to be vigilant, haven't we?
Yeah, we do. So, well, thank you again.
That's all right. It's up to you if you want to keep that story in.
Really enjoyed that.
It's
I
funny,
might have to
isn't
do a
it?
bit of Googling to
Well, it's look, they're not going to arrest me now, are they? It was 20 odd years ago.
So, but yeah, thank you very much for your time.
No, not a problem at all. I hope it was a good
It's been nice
story.
to get to know a bit more about you as well today.
Cool. Hey, you take care.
All right, thanks you. See you later.
Yeah, nice to see you. Teddy, bye.